Hello. Councillor Ian Gilbert, leader of Southend Council, has written the political viewpoint article for the April 6 edition of the Leigh Times. Councillor Gilbert joins me now to tell me a little bit more about the article he's written. Good morning, how are you then?
Uh, I'm not too bad, thanks. Yeah, enjoying slightly more relaxing Easter. Yeah.
You've started with the challenges of the pandemic and the fact that you've been leader for 2 years now.
Yeah, coming up to 2 years. Yeah, it's obviously nobody could have predicted what this last year has been like. It's been unprecedented, but I'm really pleased and proud with how everybody at the council has responded to all the challenges, and indeed, the whole community as well. It's been a privilege to be leader at this time.
It must have been a complete nightmare though, mustn't it?
Well, I mean, there are obviously huge challenges. I think, when you going into it, this time last year, the training of the officers and the professionalism kicks in, and everything happens. Everything in terms of getting all our services set up remotely, getting most of our staff set up working from home, keeping care for the elderly going, keeping safeguarding for vulnerable children. It all. There's a lot going on, but as leader, I wouldn't say. As I said, the professionalism takes over, and it's not as if there's a huge burden. I think actually coming out of lockdown and decisions we had to make over the summer were actually, from a leadership point of view, were in many ways tougher. People had widely different of opinions about to what extent we should try to keep people away from Southend. Should we close roads? Should we try and keep people off beaches? What is it actually practical for the council to do around that? That was the thing. That was actually the stage of it that was probably most intense, I think, from my point of view.
Going on, you've committed 50 million to resurfacing footpaths and roads over the next 5 years. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I think that some of our roads and pavements in the borough are in a pretty bad state. We knew that when we took over, and this investment is about 4 or 5 times what's been in the budget previously. So I believe this will make a difference in the long term. It's what. When you go out and speak to people, particularly the quality of pavements, when you have elderly people, disabled people, whether they can walk safely on the pavements is actually one of the most important issues to them. And I do think pavements have been neglected. And we've managed to find the money, partly through increases in those parking charges, which I know have been controversial, but we've managed to find the ability to put this money in. Obviously, we can't do every pavement and every road in the borough simultaneously. It's got to be a phased program, but I think it will. At the end of that 5 years, I think people will really notice a big difference in the quality of the street scene.
You talk about a positive vision you have for the town going forwards, planting trees, reducing plastic waste, improvement of energy efficiency, various things that you've been doing along those lines. Can you talk a little bit about that for me, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the environment, both in terms of, making people's day-to-day lives a bit more pleasant, but also in terms of the climate change agenda is, really important to us as an administration. It's something that the council had not been doing enough on, and it's something we've worked hard to change over the course of the last 2 years. We're not there yet totally, but I think we've made a really good start. The tree planting has been tremendously popular throughout the borough. Before we took over, the council was chopping down more trees than it was planting. We've reversed that. We're on course to hit our target for 1,000 new trees in the borough over 3 years that we set. We've now done a survey and looked at how far we can increase canopy coverage. And we've also published a roadmap in terms of how the council can get to carbon neutral by 2030. It's a very ambitious plan, and we're only just taking the first steps along it now, but it's been a focus of ours. It certainly will be if we carry on in administration.
You're putting 2.2 million upgrade to the CCTV network to tackle violent crime, antisocial behaviour. Can you say something about that for me?
Yeah, I mean, this has been, sadly, somewhat delayed in procurement. We're now on track to deliver, improve the existing cameras and the existing service, but also put new cameras in. A number of locations in Leigh which have been problematic, and the stories we've had over the last few months in Leigh. So there are a number of new cameras going in around the old town, around the library gardens and so on, but also in central Southend as well. Problem areas around Southend East Station, Ambleside Drive, York Road, Sutton Road, and along main routes like London Road as well. Cameras, which talking to people, it does make people feel safer, and but it does actually make a real difference. There have been so many times when a criminal has been caught very quickly because of CCTV and our controllers working directly with the police. It really does make a difference in cutting down on crime. So it's again, it's something that's overdue, but it's something that will be coming into place during the next year.
That ties in with the introduction of the public spaces protection orders. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean the PSPO bans street drinking and other forms of antisocial behaviour started in central Southend and along the seafront, now being extended to Leigh. It's not a magic bullet, but it's one tool that we can use to try to reduce the problems of antisocial behaviour and make people feel safer in their in the area. It does require good cooperation with the police to actually be able to enforce that properly. Again, that's something that we're working really hard on. My colleague Martin is lobbying the Chief Constable and the PCFC for more police resources on a pretty much a daily basis, and we've got assurances that there will be more police employed in Southend over the summer. I think we all realise that it could be a really busy summer for us, with people not taking foreign holidays but staying more local. So yeah, we're really keen to make, we know it has the potential to be a challenging summer in that regard. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that we can manage that safely.
You've got a number of projects that you talk about, including investment, an overall 1 billion investment with an additional 2,000 jobs that you mentioned as well. Can you expand on that a little bit for me?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the flagship um, scheme that we've got is the Better Queensway Regeneration, which I've talked about in several articles. It's something that's close to my heart. I'm the ward councillor for that area, and I've been involved in bringing it forward now for quite a number of years. That, as I'm sure you know, will deliver new housing. It will replace the old tower blocks, which are reaching the end of their useful life, with good, modern, fit for purpose housing. It will create jobs in construction and in the associated developments, and it is a huge amount of investment in the town. That got planning permission just last week, which I'm obviously delighted about. We can start some initial exploratory works on the site within a few weeks, and I'm hoping that construction will actually be starting in earnest by the end of the year. I think people in the town, I think, have heard a lot about regeneration schemes that have come and gone without really delivering much. So it's really good to be able to actually get on site and start with this one. Obviously, we've come to an agreement in principle with the football club as well around the new stadium. Hopefully the fortunes of the club on the pitch can improve, as well as as well as what we're doing to facilitate the development of the pitch. But again, that's something that's been talked about for a really long time in the town, decades, and we are close to getting that over the line. That will deliver some much needed genuinely affordable housing, as well as the new stadium development, and that will create quite a large number of jobs. We acquired the Victoria's shopping centre in the centre of town, which has been really positively received, and I know that businesses in the area welcome that. They see it's a sign that the council is committed to improving the area and isn't just going to let the high street wither. We've got the physical improvements along London Road and the top of the high street, which are looking really good. So I think it's a testament to the hard work of council officers, actually, that we've been able to manage to actually continue making progress on these schemes whilst dealing with the day-to-day challenges of COVID over the past year.
I know 750 words for an article is actually not a lot, when there's a lot of things that you could talk about, which is one of the reasons I thought this would be nice. I'm aware that almost straight away, as you became leader, one of the things that you did was you went and bought a number of properties to build up the council stock, and that seems to be something you've carried on doing. Can you say anything about that? I know it's not in your article, but it's talking about housing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're up to about 30 houses acquired under the acquisitions programme. Partly using right to buy receipts, which would have had to have been returned to the government if we'd have not used them. Partly using some capital reserves and receipts that we had. I mean, that's I'm obviously delighted that we've got some of those occupied, and families in safe, decent accommodation that perhaps would otherwise be stuck in hostels or some such. It's it's really pleasing. And again, obviously it's been difficult to progress those purchases during COVID, but we've managed to keep things ticking over. So yeah, it's relatively small in the grand scheme of things, but that's 30 families who've got decent accommodation that might otherwise not. So we're going to keep on looking for opportunities to invest in that way. As a town, well, like most places, a large part of our council stock has been lost under right to buy. So when people aren't in need of genuinely affordable accommodation, there's not a lot of options for them at the moment. There are a lot of people on our housing waiting list. So yeah, anything that we can do on that regard, I'm always really keen to push forward.
Brilliant. The Southend Pass is, you mentioned towards the end of your article, but that also ties in with paying for the road and pavement improvements, doesn't it? That's been very controversial, I think. You then come to the Better Queen's Way that you've just mentioned as well. You mentioned a new technical university. What's that all about?
Yeah, well, this is something that we're doing in partnership with other councils in South Essex. There's a group called the Sailor, the Association of South Essex Local Authorities, that I meet regularly with. It's perhaps not been the most high profile body, but it's done a lot of work in terms of the sort of big infrastructure projects that we want to see across the region, and how we can actually do more by working together. I think there's always been a skills gap in this area. Employers tell us that the average level of qualification in the adult population is not as high as it is in other areas. In terms of the population of South Essex, we're not brilliantly served by higher education. There's just the one campus of the University of Essex in Southend, which is great. Across the area, we want something where young people can study and gain high level qualifications here without necessarily needing to travel out of the area. So this is an idea that's that we've come up with. There's quite a number of businesses who are keen to work with us. Ford's being the big one, but there are others as well. Initially, starting small, we're hoping that we'll have a cohort of 30 students in 2023. But if successful, it can be built up. We're looking for a higher education establishment to partner with to do the accreditation, and again, there's discussions that are going quite well there. It's very different to the traditional model of university. We're not really thinking in terms of a physical campus. We think this is around people learning high level skills in workplaces around the area. So it's a new concept, but I think it's a really exciting one, and I think it's something that Southend Council couldn't deliver by itself, Basildon Council couldn't deliver by itself, but working together we think we can.
That's really interesting. I think I've got a snapshot of your article. So is there anything particular that you would like to add, that you would like to say before we sign off?
No, I think we've covered. I think we've covered most of it. I think my as we move from the immediate challenges of COVID, I think how the town's economy, obviously no different to anywhere else, but how we recover economically is going to be really, really important. So I think by the sort of schemes that I've mentioned, building up business confidence, making sure that this area is an area that people think that they can invest in, is going to be really important. Some of the figures on unemployment, again, here, like, around the country, are looking extremely worrying, particularly amongst young people. So, trying to make sure that young people have those opportunities, in this area, I think is a really big part of what I'll be looking to do over the coming 12 months, if people see fit to re-elect us.
Are you feeling confident?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to be able to go out and speak to people on the doorstep again. The reaction across the town is, seems positive. But don't count. Never complacent, and I never count any chickens. We'll know what people are going to do when we see the votes being counted on May the 6th.
Brilliant. Well, I wish you the very best, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
No
Thank you.
problem at all. That's great.